They are the invisible architects of power, the silent conductors behind the world's greatest symphonies of control. They write the rules, shape the wars, and design the peace. They are the ones you were never meant to see. What if I told you that the fate of nations, the crash of economies, and even the tides of technology are guided not by governments, but by families, ancient, secretive lineages that have held the reins of humanity for centuries? Tonight we peel back the curtain. Tonight we trace the bloodlines. Tonight we reveal the 7 secret families that control the world. Before we step into the shadows, make sure you subscribe to this channel, because what you're about to hear isn't just a story, it's a revelation, and the truth lies darker than you've ever imagined. History is written by the victors, but power is preserved by the hidden. When you look at the world's map, the shifting alliances, the endless conflicts, the currency that never loses its hold, you'll find fingerprints. And those fingerprints lead to families whose reach transcends politics, religion, and borders. They don't just own wealth, they own influence, they own narratives. The story begins in the old world, Europe, the cradle of monarchs and empires. And it begins with a name whispered in both reverence and fear. Family 1, the House of Rothschild. To understand control, we must understand money. And to understand money, we must begin with the Rothschilds. In the late 18th century, a banker named Mayer Amschel Rothschild built an empire from the cobbled streets of Frankfurt. He sent each of his 5 sons to a different capital, London, Paris, Vienna, Naples, and Frankfurt, creating a web of financial dominance that soon eclipsed kings themselves. They financed wars and peace treaties. They decided who would rise and who would fall. It was said that the Rothschilds didn't just lend to monarchs, they owned them. In an age when information traveled by horse and courier, the Rothschilds had their own private network, a communication system so fast it rivaled any government. They knew before anyone else who had won or lost a battle, and that knowledge was power. But what makes this family truly enduring isn't their fortune. It's their philosophy. Control through finance, discretion through influence. While dynasties rose and fell, their empire quietly adapted. From gold to bonds, from bonds to central banks, and from central banks to the digital age. Even now, whispers persist that behind global institutions, the IMF, the World Bank, and shadowy financial summits, their descendants still hold unseen sway. Are these whispers truth or myth? Perhaps the truth lies in the silence that surrounds their name. But if the Rothschilds mastered wealth, the next family mastered the narrative. Family 2, the House of Rockefeller. In the New World, a different kind of empire was being forged, not with coins or crowns, but with oil. And at its heart stood John D. Rockefeller, a name that became synonymous with modern capitalism itself. Through Standard Oil, Rockefeller didn't just control fuel, he controlled civilization's heartbeat. Every car, every ship, every machine that powered the Industrial Revolution ran on his empire. And with that control came something far greater than wealth: influence over progress itself. By the early 1900s, the Rockefellers had amassed such dominance that the U.S. government itself was forced to intervene, breaking up Standard Oil into fragments. But those fragments didn't disappear. They multiplied, morphing into corporate giants that still dominate the world's energy markets today. The family diversified: banking, education, healthcare, even media. They founded universities, funded research, and sat on the boards of the most powerful institutions on Earth. And through philanthropy, they shaped public opinion, redefining influence not as control, but as contribution. But behind every donation lies direction. Behind every foundation lies a philosophy. John D. Rockefeller once said, "Competition is a sin." It wasn't arrogance, it was doctrine, because true power doesn't compete. True power coordinates. And so, the Rockefellers became the architects of the modern system, where corporate, political, and philanthropic spheres blend seamlessly into one mechanism of global direction. But who directs them? Who holds the leash of the elite? To find that answer, we must leave the world of oil and enter the world of secrecy itself. Every empire needs allies, and every family that seeks to control must learn to remain unseen. What connects these dynasties is not blood alone. It's philosophy, a creed passed quietly from generation to generation. To control the visible, you must master the invisible. And so we move deeper, into the arcane, the untold, the families whose names rarely surface, but whose influence may touch every life on Earth. If you've made it this far, you already sense that what we're uncovering isn't just history, it's the architecture of power itself. Help us expose more of it. Hit that subscribe button. Share this with someone who needs to wake up. Because the next families we're about to reveal operate beyond borders, beyond nations, and beyond what you think you know about control. Power comes in many forms. Some wield it through wealth, others through faith. While the Rothschilds moved through banks and the Rockefellers through oil, the next family forged their empire in the realm of belief, the oldest form of control known to humankind. For centuries, faith has guided kings, justified wars, and dictated the moral compass of nations. But behind the sacred walls of one of the world's most enduring institutions lies a lineage shrouded in divine secrecy. Family 3, the Orsini bloodline, the Vatican's hidden hands. Long before the modern world existed, Italy was the heartbeat of empires. And within its palaces and basilicas rose a family whose influence extended beyond politics into the very soul of civilization, the Orsini. Their name surfaces again and again through the annals of the Catholic Church, popes, cardinals, and noblemen bound by one goal: spiritual dominion. But the Orsini were no ordinary clergy. They were power brokers using religion as both a shield and a sword. Manuscripts, candlelight flickering on marble statues, symbols of the papacy intertwined with family crests. For centuries, the Orsini and their interlinked noble houses shaped the Church's hierarchy, influencing doctrine, steering political alliances, even deciding who would wear the papal crown. Behind the serene rituals and holy proclamations lay quiet deals. Wealth exchanged for obedience, loyalty traded for salvation. They understood something profound. To rule the body, one must control the spirit. To own the spirit, one must define truth. It is whispered that even in modern times, remnants of this Vatican power network persist. Through secret orders, financial institutions, and the interwoven ranks of the Jesuits, their influence stretches far beyond the church walls, into education, intelligence, and politics. And though few today utter the name Orsini aloud, their legacy survives in the quiet corridors where decisions of faith and fate intertwine. If the Orsini shaped faith, the next family shaped royalty itself. Where religion provided justification, nobility provided legitimacy, and no lineage has mastered that art better than the Windsors. Family 4, the House of Windsor, the crown that never falls. At first glance, they appear as symbols, living relics of a bygone era, figureheads for pageantry and tradition. But behind the glittering crowns and diamond scepters lies a story far older, far deeper, and far more complex than any fairy tale. The House of Windsor, formerly known as the House of Saxe-Coburg and Gotha, rebranded itself during World War I, shedding its Germanic name to appear distinctly British. Yet this was no simple cosmetic change. It was a strategic transformation, an act of survival in an age of nationalism and global upheaval. The Windsors mastered the greatest illusion of all, appearing powerless while holding unseen power in reserve. Through global diplomacy, Commonwealth ties, and elite circles that span from London to Ottawa, from Sydney to Johannesburg, they remain the quiet connectors of the English-speaking world. Their wealth, estimated in billions, is merely the surface. Their true strength lies in influence, the soft power of tradition, legitimacy, and continuity. In the modern age, monarchies fall, empires collapse, but the Windsors remain. Why? Because they understood what so few others grasp, that symbols can endure longer than soldiers. That an idea, once rooted in the mind of the masses, can outlive even time itself. Behind public appearances lies the machinery of soft diplomacy. Quiet meetings with corporate heads, ties to intelligence agencies, and charitable foundations that mask the strategic flow of influence. From global banking to energy policy, from defense to culture, their connections ripple quietly outward like concentric circles on water. The crown may glitter, but it also blinds. And so, while the world watches royal weddings, the true power of the Windsors lies not in their crowns, but in their network. A network that touches the Rothschilds, the Rockefellers, and even the papal houses of Europe. But power is never confined to one continent. From the gilded halls of London, we journey now to the icy peaks of Switzerland, the silent heart of global finance, where secrecy is not just a policy, it's a national identity. 4 families revealed. 4 pillars of an unseen order: money, industry, faith, and monarchy. But beneath these four lies the machinery that connects them all. Banking secrecy, international law, and the unseen network of influence that ties the old world to the new. The next family's story is not written in the open. It is encrypted, embedded in vaults, treaties, and trade networks that span continents. They do not appear on magazine covers, they appear in contracts. We are now halfway through the labyrinth. If what you've heard so far has you questioning everything, you're not alone. That feeling, the doubt, the curiosity, is how truth begins. Before we continue to the remaining three families, do something important. Subscribe, like, and share this video. Because as we step deeper, what comes next has been buried under decades of silence. And bringing it to light means more eyes, more voices, and more courage. The families that remain are the most elusive. They have no thrones, no titles, and no visible armies, yet their reach extends into every network, every transaction, every breath of modern life. They are the hidden pulse of the planet. Four families built the foundation: wealth, oil, faith, and monarchy. But in the modern world, power has evolved. It no longer needs palaces or pulpits. It needs servers, satellites, and systems. And so, the final three families are not ancient nobles or royal bloodlines. They are modern dynasties. Digital emperors, military financiers, and global brokers who turn technology and secrecy into the new weapons of control. Family 5, the House of Morgan, the gatekeepers of global finance. If the Rothschilds created the blueprint for banking power, the Morgans industrialized it. In the early 1900s, John Pierpont Morgan became the financial heartbeat of America. When the U.S. economy trembled, Morgan steadied it. When the government faltered, he became its banker. He was not elected, he was obeyed. Through his empire, Morgan shaped the steel industry, the railroads, and the first foundations of the Federal Reserve, the system that would define global economics for a century. When Morgan spoke, presidents listened. When Morgan invested, nations rose. But the true legacy of the Morgans lies in what came after. The J.P. Morgan Group evolved into one of the most influential banking institutions in modern history, steering the flow of global capital, mergers, and debt. Even today, their reach extends into nearly every financial artery of the world: corporate loans, sovereign debt, digital currency infrastructure, and energy derivatives. Money is no longer printed, it's programmed. And the Morgans, or the descendants of their ideology, remain the quiet coders of that new economy. They do not need to rule by decree, they rule by default. Family 6, the DuPont dynasty, masters of war and innovation. If finance moves the world, innovation arms it. And few families have balanced creation and destruction with such precision as the DuPonts. From gunpowder to nylon, from military contracts to biotechnology, the DuPont family's influence stretches through 2 centuries of American and global power. They didn't just manufacture products, they manufactured dependence. In both world wars, their inventions fueled empires, supplying explosives, chemicals, and later, technologies that reshaped modern warfare. But the DuPont's genius was not in warfare alone. It was in diversification. Plastics, agriculture, pharmaceuticals. Every corner of modern industry carries their fingerprints. Through innovation, they controlled necessity itself. They built a family legacy that bridged government and corporation, with members in high-ranking positions, both public and private. Their laboratories became temples of modern science, yet behind the progress lay a constant truth: control through creation. If you make what the world cannot live without, you no longer compete, you command. But even innovation bows before one final force of information. Because in the 21st century, knowledge isn't just power, it's possession. And that possession belongs to the 7th family, Family 7, the hidden network, the digital bloodline. They have no crest, no royal seal, no ancient tombs or family estates, yet their power eclipses that of any monarch, banker, or oil baron. The 7th family isn't bound by blood, it's bound by data. It is the invisible alliance of tech titans, corporate conglomerates, and investment networks that control the arteries of the modern world. They decide what you see. They shape what you believe. They harvest not gold but information. In the age of social media, the currency of control has shifted from money to mind. Every click, every search, every movement is a note in a vast digital symphony of surveillance. Behind the facade of innovation lies consolidation. Global funds like BlackRock and Vanguard, quietly owning significant shares in nearly every major corporation on Earth. Their investments form an unseen lattice, connecting banks, tech firms, pharmaceutical giants, and energy empires into one network. A digital dynasty without a name, a silent monarchy of algorithms, and at the top, the circle completes. Because data feeds commerce, commerce feeds governments, governments feed control, and control feeds back into the same few hands that have guided humanity since the dawn of civilization. 7 families, 7 empires, one unbroken chain. Perhaps you're wondering, could this all truly be connected? Could a handful of families and networks really dictate the course of the world? The skeptic says no, the believer says yes. The truth, as always, hides somewhere in between, not in overt control, but in alignment. Across generations, these lineages learned the same truth. Power is not about ownership. It's about direction. Who sets the agenda? Who defines the narrative? Who decides what the world fears and what it desires? Maybe the families aren't sitting around a table plotting the next century. Maybe they don't need to, because the system itself, the one they built, inherited, and evolved, now runs automatically, like a living organism. They no longer control the machine. The machine controls us all, and perhaps that was always the plan. If this journey opened your eyes, if it made you question the narratives we've been taught to trust, don't let it end here. Subscribe to this channel. Share this film with someone who still believes power is what we see on the surface. Because the deeper you look, the clearer the pattern becomes. 7 families may have built the structure, but the next chapter, the rewriting of that story, belongs to us. Remember, knowledge isn't dangerous, ignorance is. And the moment you start asking who truly rules the world, you've already begun to take back your power. From ancient banks to digital code, from oil wells to data clouds, humanity has always traded freedom for comfort, truth for convenience. The 7 families understood this. They didn't have to conquer us. They only had to understand us. And maybe, just maybe, that's the secret they've guarded all along. That real power isn't hidden in vaults or thrones or bloodlines. It's hidden in belief. Thank you for watching, and remember, the truth doesn't hide in the dark. It hides in plain sight.